Terodde, an instant hero! Can you believe this? Plenty attacking! No! The comeback is complete! A stunning second half from Schalke!
Blau und Weiß sein Leben lang. Hallo meine Leute, willkommen zum einzigen Schalke Podcast auf Englisch. Officially the world's only Schalke podcast in English. Welcome to episode 146 of SchalkeMerica. I'm your host, Richard Carmen. Joining me, as always, co-host Jack Mangan. Happy Victory Monday.
Happy Victory Monday, sir. How are you?
I'm doing better than you are. Do you have any frostbite by any chance? I heard you were in a cold temperature this week.
I'm doing all right. Yeah, I drove up to the Twin Cities to attend the USA Honduras World Cup qualifier.
Ice Bowl.
Yes, at Allianz Field or Arena, whatever they're calling it, the nice new stadium up there, which was lovely, and I'm sure would have been significantly more lovely had it not been essentially 0 degrees at kickoff. So, but it's nice to feel alive every once in a while, and no permanent damage for me. Can't necessarily say the same for some of the Honduran players that were removed at halftime due to hypothermia. Hopefully U.S. Soccer doesn't decide to do something like that again, because it was probably pretty dumb, but you can say you were there at least. How about that?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Williams in the house says Happy Victory Monday. Happy Victory Monday indeed. Yeah, it was
McKenny, sorry, I should say, our boy McKenny leading the scoring. A goal which I did not see because I did not get to my seats until the 30th minute due to long security lines and such. But had I been there to see it, would have been quite nice because my seats were right behind the goal, which is the side that McKenny scored on. So
I thought you were going to say you were inside somewhere getting warm for a couple minutes. You missed the goal.
No, I was outside in the cold and missed the goal. Yeah.
Double. Joseph's in the house says Happy Victory Monday. Happy Victory Monday. Yeah, what a game. Well, the game that you were at, but also the game we witnessed on, what was it, Saturday morning. 2-1 victory. Revenge.
Regensburg revenge.
Regensburg revenge. I like that. The alliteration there. It was an interesting game in many ways, not just with the score lines and what happened in the game, but it was just an interesting game nonetheless. And Renee's in the house says, hello, fellow Terodde stands. Hello. Zuli's in there says, hello, Uncle Pedro. Okay. But yes, game 2-1 victory. It's nice to get revenge here against Regensburg. We talked about how important these first 4 games are right out of the block. And really, Regensburg is another team in the top 8 that we had to prove ourselves against, right? And we did. Interesting game overall. Thoughts before we get into it?
I think I was one of the people that was maybe slightly more in the minority in terms of feeling that the first leg against Regensburg, which was one of those early kind of comprehensive defeats that we suffered, was potentially a little bit flattering to them in terms of the actual scoreline. I do feel as though they were the significantly more organized and composed team, which part of that could have been, the integration of all the new players, the total squad overhaul that we had in the summer, and that still not entirely gelling that early in the season. So, I mean, they were the better team in that sense. But I mean, you look at some of the goals they scored in that game.
Ridiculous.
Another one from outside the box. We'll talk about that in this game in a minute. So, I mean, you just got to wonder what the XG was on some of those chances in the first one. So, for me, I kind of felt like if we improved the performance overall and at least had a little bit more of a stake in the game, that we had a good chance of getting a result here, just because I didn't feel like they were going to kind of score as many wonder goals as they did last time, although they got pretty close in a while ways. So it ultimately got what we needed to get done to kind of edge it out and get the result in the end.
Overall, I think even a performance that Uncle Pedro in Germany would be proud of, right? Let's get to the lineups in this one. First for the home team, which we are, and it's kind of ironic that the guy that we kind of highlight here was the guy who was a big impact off the bench. But starting lineup in this one: Frazel in goal, Kaminsky, Sane, Itakura in the back this time. Midfield 5, Oyan on the left, Vinheim on the right, Paulsen, Idrisi, Salazar in the middle once again. And once again, it's Pieringer with Terodde, not Bulter. Thoughts on the starting lineup on this one?
I mean, Malik Chow, obviously a big omission, but it's going to be interesting to see how those three kind of get swapped around now that Salif Sane is back in the picture. And you would imagine that Sane is going to be starting more often than not as well. So, but I'm not really opposed to this if this actually kind of continues and like maybe every other game, like they're taking one of those guys out and kind of changing it around.
Yeah.
Keeps everybody fresh, and I have confidence in all 4 of those guys, honestly. So not a big concern there. For me, Vinheim back in the lineup again, the new man after his pretty incredible debut not too long ago. Adrizi and Salazar centrally, which is I think what you'd expect at this point. And then the other talking point would be Pieringer up top. I like Pieringer. I think we've been positive about Pieringer on this podcast. I disagree with him being first choice over Bolter. Bolter was injured prior to the Winterpause as well, so I don't know if some of this is still like load management, bringing him back in. And so once again, swapping things around, or if this is really an indication that Pieringer might be kind of edging out and becoming first choice in the perspective of Grammatics. If that's the case, I don't really agree with that as much as I do like Pieringer. But not a bad performance from Pieringer today. Overall, did lose the ball. I think that led to the goal ultimately, but that's not, a loss of possession that you can really blame on him in terms of how the goal ended up being scored. So, anything else really jump out at you? How did you feel about seeing Pieringer in the lineup over Bolter or somebody else?
Yeah, I remember pre-match. I was talking with one of the guys from the Facebook group, David Thielen, about Bolter versus Terodde, Bolter versus Pieringer, and we both had the same sentiments that you are, because Bolter's proven himself. He deserves to be a starter. Now, if it's like you say, that you're trying to ease him back in after the injury, okay, that's cool. But, ultimately he should be starting over Pieringer, though Bolter seemed to do very well off the bench, right? But he does well no matter what. And so that was a little odd for me. And then also Thiaw not in the lineup, and I didn't know if it was a knock or what was going on there. Obviously, Kaminsky getting to the lineup wasn't that big of a drop back. Yes, Thiaw is better, but Kaminsky's done well for himself this season. He's provided timely assists. Never gave us the reason to question him in the back there. He's really quiet back there, which is good, because if the defender's been noticeable, that means he's not doing his job. So that was interesting for me. And then midfield 5, I was pretty fine with. The one big omission, I think, I guess we can talk about real quick right now, is we got a new guy, the South Korean Messi, Lee Dong-jeong from South Korea, and lots of hype about this guy. So I saw some of his highlights, very impressed. I was wondering if he was going to get at least onto the bench. He did not make the bench in this one. You see Fairman, Loda, Raskowski, Cherlinov, Flick, Thiaw, Ranfil, Mikhailov, and Bolter on the bench. So not seeing him, I was a little down about that, but overall the starting lineup was fine with me.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to getting a look at him whenever it is that we ultimately do. I saw a couple sizzle reels as well, which can always be maybe a little bit misleading in terms of just constantly looking at highlights and stuff. But certainly from some of the stuff you saw in there, potentially the kind of profile of a player that you'd like to see centrally that could help maybe extract that we talk about that 5-10% extra out of the offense that's going to push us over the top into the promotion places. And a good point from Renee here in the comments talking about Pieringer's. He did play well, prior to this. But going back to that, I would still probably agree that overall Bolter would be first choice for me. I think he had a very good first half of the season prior to when he was injured. And there seems to be some sort of hoodoo between Terodde and Bolter when they're on the pitch together. I don't know what that's about, but it's kind of funny at this point. Anyway, and the other thing is just Bolter's energy. We talk about it all the time. The second, he's almost he's definitely more angry than Kolasinac, for example. But do you remember before Zale left for Arsenal initially, he had become sort of the emotional catalyst for the team and would just make these sort of hustle plays or have these big energy moments that would sort of galvanize everybody. And I feel like Bolter's presence is very much similar, and we kind of miss that when he's not on the pitch.
I agree 100% about that, and you felt that impact when he came onto the starting lineup, or off the bench, I should say. Regensburg lineup, Meyer in goal. Meyer was pretty good. Gimber was a nuisance all game long. Buskashau, Faber, Vikesser was pretty good to set pieces. Singh is a danger man. We noticed in the first game as well. Albers is the guy who scored a goal. We'll get to in a minute. Guevara, Bukalfa, Bergkreitz, and Elvedi, a name we remember from the Bundesliga. Obviously, for me, the big name for me that I was worried about was going to be Singh. Singh did some damage to us in the first game. Granted, the scoreline looked worse than it was, but I think Singh was very involved in all those goals in the first game. So I had my eye on him. Obviously, he's a Bayern Munich product. Anyone in this lineup that had your eyebrows raised when you saw them?
Probably agree with that. He played some nice set pieces as well at times.
Yeah.
So he has a little bit of that in his game. As well.
Kessler as well.
Going back to the top of this, as I've said kind of repeatedly over the season, I believe in our squad. I believe in the talent that we have. And so, this was a game where we got slapped pretty hard the first time around, but I wasn't terribly worried about it. Once again, as long as we played relatively competently, and we were in this game even when we were behind. So yeah, I back us.
Yeah, and we started the game up okay. It was back and forth. Lots of sloppy play by both teams in the middle. Really, the passing percentages, which I like to look at, was in the 60 percentiles for a good part of the game, and eventually it rose up. But it was very sloppy. It looked a very evenly matched game, really. And we knew this kind of game that an error was going to lead to something, start off the goal scoring, and it did. So Kaminsky kind of forced the pass to Pieringer. Pieringer really did pretty poorly on that touch. Ends up losing it to Albers. Albers ends up marauders down the pitch, and a striker taking a bomb from 40 yards. You're like, okay, whatever. Freaking nails it past Frazel. And I don't know if part of me is like, Frazel should have covered it. Why was he so far out? But two is like, it was a pretty good shot, Jack. What were your thoughts on just the whole play overall and then the goal?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, in the first half, like I felt like we did pretty well at times and had decent possession and had some good ideas, but just didn't lacked the cutting edge that we oftentimes lack, and just couldn't actually get something across to take advantage of some of the better moments that we had. This goal actually came about like off of a piece of possession from us. We were just kind of resetting it back to goal. I think Itakura maybe played it back to Frazel and plays it to Kaminsky, who has some space, turns upfield, and I mean, maybe you could argue that the pass had a little bit of heat on it from Kaminsky that made it a little bit difficult, but it's a pretty poor touch from Pieringer, as you said, who loses it, and then no one is picking up you don't expect the dribbler to have one from 40 yards. So I mean, you can be a little bit charitable in the sense that like that's not a shot that people take every day. Yeah. But the only person that seemed to show any interest in closing him down was actually Paulsen, who was running kind of more horizontally across the pitch and got there like almost right when he was shooting it and just missed out. But Kaminsky was backing off, everybody else was backing off. And ultimately, if you give somebody that kind of a shooting lane and they're feeling themselves a little bit, they can do that every once in a while. So tough, especially because once again, that was the way they scored the first goal against us in the previous match, was a giveaway off of some goalkeeper play. I think maybe Fairman made a bad pass there, I forget. Yeah. And it was like a curler from outside the box. So to just concede multiple beyond the box shot attempts from Regensburg this season is just pretty wild. And that was disheartening at the time, but luckily we kind of turned it around.
Yeah, and I was wondering about this when the goal, because I watched it live, obviously, and I thought maybe there was a deflection on the shot. And Renee is saying, yeah, it was deflected. And to your point, I think it was Paulsen maybe that deflected it. And maybe that's why Frazel got beat. He shouldn't have got beat from that distance, but something would have to change slightly to make him miss it by that much. So I mean, I'll credit to Albers for taking the shot, obviously, but yeah, it was an interesting point in the game, because I think the first 15 minutes I thought we did well, and then slowly but surely Regensburg started getting confidence and growing more and more to the game, and I felt around the 25th minute that something bad was going to happen, and sure enough, 5-6 minutes later they score a goal. And at that point, I was just like, let's just get out of the half here and reset, because we didn't look that great in the second half of that first half. And we needed that break to come sooner than later. And we're creating anything.
It was tough, too, because Vinheim, of course, gets injured early into this match. So he's replaced with Ranful. And Vinheim is obviously we've seen it, small sample size, as we always say, that famous term, small sample size, right? But like, provides an option and can do some things and create some things down the right-hand side. So he leaves and you get replaced with Ranful, who, no offense to Ranful, doesn't provide that kind of consistent thrust offensively. Yeah. You also had a pretty anonymous game from Salazar, who's been poor recently. And then I think simultaneously, even though I was just giving Paulsen some credit, I think this was one of Paulsen's worst games in possession.
Yeah.
And
Idrissi wasn't that great either.
The deficiencies that we talk about in Paulsen's game on the ball, I think, were very evident in this one. And they're sometimes not as evident. Yeah. And so when you have when you have your right side that's not producing much, and then you have two of your three central midfielders who are really struggling to connect passes or like do anything with the ball, it makes it really hard to build and create chances. People are already paying a lot of attention to Oyan and making it difficult for him to do things. So that's when you need those other guys to step up. And I felt like for various reasons, it just wasn't happening for us as much as it needed to in the first half.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too. And obviously having Vinheim go down so quickly was a gut punch. Someone who had such an excellent debut. We're hoping to see more of that. Him with Oyan, you think it's a great compliment for each other, and it'll keep the defenders honest, because they're not going to overcrowd Oyan with what Vinheim did. But then he goes down with an injury. Ranful comes in, and Yeah, and Ronfeld can put a shift in here and there, but he's not the same quality as an Iden or even a Vinheim. So he did what he could in the game. And we made it out of the first half, down only 1-0. We knew some things had to happen in the second half. We have some guys on the bench. I was screaming for some guys to make some substitutions. I didn't see. So Pieringer, while he hadn't made the mistake, I thought he was at least active. He was, coming back on defense.
Yeah.
And I thought if anyone had to go, I thought it would have been Terodde, just because he seemed a little more staticky compared to Pieringer. And I wanted to award Pieringer for at least the hard work because it made it a little bit more difficult. But thoughts on? I mean, you kind of already went through, but Pieringer, would you not agree that he actually put some effort in despite losing the ball and causing a turnover?
Yeah, absolutely. And I despite the comments that I made about both throughout the start of this, which I stand by, I thought Pieringer actually had a pretty good game for the most part outside of that mistake that led to the goal. I think he was pretty successful. He won most of his aerial and ground duels. That's so once again, you're talking about some of the things he's doing off the ball, defensively or tracking things down was very active. And that's obviously important when you have Terodde, who's not going to cover quite as much ground, from that position. I don't think it's harsh after 60 minutes if you haven't scored to swap out one of your strikers. But I don't think he played particularly poorly either. Yeah, so I feel you. And I think, and the good thing is, the other thing is, at least we don't have David Wagner, who is waiting until the 85th minute to make any substitutions when it's quite clear, like the second half of this game, we didn't make any subs at halftime, and I was fine with that. But usually, what you'd like to see in that situation is give it 15 minutes, see if whatever the halftime message was takes hold with that same group of players.
Exactly.
And if it doesn't work, then around the 60th minute, you want to make changes. Grammozis did exactly that. I thought it was actually a very poor opening 15. Regensburg were kind of running rampant, doing a lot of work in transition, which was quite dangerous. And then you saw that triple sub that really settled things down, brought us back in the game, almost an immediate impact. But you see Bolter come on, you see Zalazar get the hook, which I thought was deserved in this game as well. And then who was the third sub up right off the bat? I forget.
Is it Flick?
Flick was later.
Thiaw came in.
Yeah, Thiaw came on for Salif Sane. And I thought Sane was fine in this game. So I think maybe once again that could be like a load management thing potentially. Because even when Sane's been healthy, he's gotten re-injured a couple times. So and I have no problem with that. Once again, you have 4 center backs, they're all good. It's a good problem to have.
And I think all of us FIFA heads, we kind of look at that 60-minute mark where we kind of make a substitution, like you said, give some time in the second half and nothing happens, especially if you're losing, switch it up and try to get some fresh legs in there. So, something I noticed, and Renee brings it up point too, is that, usually we're the ones who, and I mentioned this on the live stream, usually we're the ones who are the aggressors with the press, and we're the ones trying to cause the turnovers. And it seemed like we weren't into that, and Regensburg were really doing that. And to Renee's point, they're very difficult to play against because he calls them like the Freiburg of the second division. They're difficult to play against when they do that, and we've been successful when we've done that, this season, and not going to the press for whatever reason really let Regensburg into the game and then dictate how they wanted to put the pressure against us. And it really, I think, started tiring some of these guys out, maybe contribute to the performances of Salazar, Idrisi, and Paulsen for having poor games, really. And so I was disappointed in that. I kept screaming, like, press, what are you doing? And a couple of times they did press. It caused some good things, but I think, ultimately, to your credit, the substitutions that came in, instant impacts. Obviously, Bulter right away within 3 minutes of him coming on. Lovely play. So a guy who we've talked about his assist all season long, Kaminsky, nice over-the-top pass to Bulter. I mean, pinpoint pass. Bulter heads it back right to Terodde. Toe pokes it in past the goalkeeper. That chemistry you talked about, that's a great way. Instant impact there by Bulter. And I was like, oh, I want to Terodde off. Whoop, never mind. Forget that.
Yeah. For anyone who's listening to this and not watching this live in chat, when we keep referencing Renee, we're talking about obviously one of our friends who's participating in the chat here. And anytime Renee's in the chat, we're going to take advantage of it because it's insightful and good commentary usually. But he says you can't take Terodde off because he can, make something happen. And I believe the Schalke TV commentator in English at one point said Terodde doing Terodde things, which is what it is. I mean, he can be quiet for 60 minutes in a match, and all it takes is that one chance, that one half chance in the box. And there's nobody else that you would rather have in that kind of position to sweep that up and make sure that you convert it. And the thing that was so spectacular about this goal is this is a borderline identical goal to the one goal that we did score against Regensburg in the first match this season, which was the ball gets cycled out to Malik Chow, who plays it kind of diagonally backwards into more space for Kaminsky. And while that ball's kind of moving backwards and you're drawing the defenders kind of upfield towards the ball. Somebody in the first game, it was Cherlinov. This time it was Bolter. Makes that run kind of off the shoulder. Kaminsky plays a gorgeous lofted diagonal, and then it's headed into Terodde, who finishes. It's almost exactly the same goal that we scored. So the fact that Kaminsky did that to them twice and that it was I mean, you almost wonder if that was scripted, like to some extent, because they did that in the first game and they were like waiting for an opportunity to try it. I mean, Kaminsky got into some similar positions a couple of times. Didn't look he was looking for that much, but yeah, I got a lot of enjoyment out of that. And then, of course, Bolter's face immediately. And just as an emotional thing, as something else I want to mention, I love the energy on the bench.
Yes.
And people may have differing opinions on this. Like maybe they don't want the sporting director as involved in kind of like getting in the midst of like, the team dynamic or whatever. But the fact that you have like Gramatsis and Schroeder and, Asamoah and Buskins all on the bench at the same time, and they're all like talking to the officials and being emotional and providing that. I think
Gramatsis got a yellow.
Yeah, he did. Because Cherlinov dove, and I blame Cherlinov for that, like Gramatsis yellow. But anyway, I love the energy on the bench, and the second that goal scored, you could hear the Veltins Arena. I think the 10,000 fans or whatever we were allowed to have in really kind of picked up the energy levels, and that really turned the match very quickly.
Yeah, and I think the insertion of Bolter really ignited the Nord curve as well. You could feel the crowd all of a sudden get into the game, which was great. It was this instant impact by him. Cherlinov came on for a brief appearance, contributed to the team. Eventually, I don't know if he led to the foul, and but 10 minutes later,
he won the free kick. That was the second goal that we scored. It's correct.
Yeah, and Oyan doing Oyan things, beautiful cross into the box, and Bolter again near post run, flicks it back right to Thiaw. Thiaw puts it away, wonderfully done. The two subs make an instant impact in this one. Bolter 2 assists. But yeah, what a goal there. And obviously it's a Terodde jumping on his back, on Thiaw's back, and the team going nuts.
I mean, a little bit fortunate of a goal, obviously, because it's not as if, Oyan was playing a little bit of a deflection, but Bolter getting involved again, second, flicked on header assist in a matter of 5 minutes or whatever it was. And, very, confident and opportunistic finish from Malik Chow there, which we love to see. Yeah, I don't know. I do wonder sometimes, this is maybe perception thing, when he's in the lineup with Sane at the same time, I feel like he gets little brothered a little bit from Sane. Yeah. And I feel like that almost hurts his confidence. And I feel like when he's out there by himself, he tends to be a little bit more saucy of a player. So I don't know if you picked up on this or if this is totally me, but
no, it could be. I haven't picked it up, but it could be. And Sane is more of a defensive presence. That's has been his backline for a while now, right? So he's going to dictate the defense how they do it more than Itakura will. Itakura is probably the quiet leader back there. He makes those great tackles, but Sane is going to be the one telling people, push up, come back, don't do this and do that. So maybe he's preventing Thiaw from making those runs like he has the freedom when Itakura is back there. Maybe that's a good thing, interesting thing to look at going forward, because that very well could be it. But he does seem to play with a little bit more freedom and pizzazz. I don't know if that's the right word. When Itakura is alongside him as opposed to Thiaw, and it's nice seeing Itakura doing well again on the right side of the back three. We've seen him so much in that middle that sometimes making that switch just a few feet over can really change your game, and it hasn't done for Itakura.
He was a huge signing, wasn't he? To really just to round out that back three pairing, and he's been very consistent. I mean, I think it was the first couple games he was a little shaky as he was integrating, and after that he's been borderline faultless since then. No, but it's a good point you make about Zane and sort of the direction and everything. And it's funny, in the second half, I don't know if you were going to mention this, there's one other moment, and I forgot where it kind of originates from, but Regensburg is in transition, and ball carriers around 30-40 yards out, and Kaminsky's backing off his man again, and the guy has a shot, and it hits the post, hits the crossbar. And that was a scary moment. And you could see Sane is immediately yelling at Kaminsky. And I don't know if Sane is hey, you did that in the first half, and the guy scored. Maybe you want to step up. I don't know what the conversation was, but kind of an interesting moment there. Yeah.
And maybe this is something Regensburg has noticed too. Fraza comes out a little bit too far sometimes, and other teams have taken pops at him from distance. So maybe that's a weakness they've seen. And you talked about how Kaminsky's seen Schalke's seen the weakness against Regensburg about that over the top pass that kind of works. So both teams, I guess, finding the weaknesses of the opposition there. We got lucky with that post because I could not take another wonder goal from that distance or any distance really. So lucky. I don't remember exactly when that happened, but I want to say it was like in the 1-1 time frame before that second goal. I could be wrong. So I feel like they almost scored. We went on the other end and scored a goal, but nonetheless,
it may have been.
Nonetheless, it was 2-1 victory.
I do want to. Sorry, I apologize.
Please.
I keep interrupting you. We're jumping around a little bit. I do want to shout out Sherlinov though.
Solid 10 minutes.
Didn't play particularly well. Didn't really get involved in the game that much when he was on the pitch. But was yanked after 10 minutes. My interpretation of that was, we had subbed him on as a replacement for Salazar, who was gassed and not playing particularly well when we were still chasing the game at that point. Sherlinov was kind of playing out of position, essentially. Like you wouldn't typically put him there anyway. Kind of a stopgap to replace Salazar. You suddenly take the lead, and so he gets subbed out for Florian Flick, which to me is a defensive substitution once you have the lead of the game and you're just trying to shore things up and see it out. So for me, that wasn't really it wasn't like a commentary on Sherlinov's play. I don't see if there's anything that came out after the game in terms of any like comments he made or anything, but at the time he seemed to handle it like remarkably well. Like very maturely, like didn't cause a scene,
no
like
pouting, nothing,
whatever. And that's always an awkward position to be in as a player, to go on the pitch and then be subbed out 10 minutes later. It's it can be awkward. It can be insulting. So the fact that he took it that well and seemed to like get it and didn't cause a scene, I think is very commendable. And I just wanted to give him a shout out because that's the kind of team play you need. Like you need to be able to go in there and play a role and, do whatever job the coach wanted you to do. And like, he's going to get starts before the season's over. He's going to have, more opportunities than this. And so I just appreciated that he handled it as well as he did.
It's not like this is a frequent thing with him where you bring him off for a couple minutes and take him off. This is the first time it's happened. So kudos to him. Did he do anything after the game or something that,
no, I didn't. I'm just saying in case I missed something and then then I stand corrected potentially, but at the time it seemed like he was very mature about it. So
yeah, and I agree. And I think overall performance was decent. It was a hard fought match, 2-1 victory. Shots fairly even, shots on target even, possession fairly even. I mean, everything's pretty even in this game. We turned it on with the substitutions. I think you mentioned this too. Gramotzis hit the nail on the head with the substitutions, even the short one with Sherlinov, and it paid off in this one. We don't often praise the substitutions and some of the tactics of Gramotzis, but I'm thinking this one, he got it right. While the first half was off, he corrected it. The team corrected it, and it worked out ultimately at the end. So yeah, it was 2-1 victory there, and people are going to question about Frazel being in goal, and Renee brings up the point, what do you guys think about our goalkeeper situation in the future? Frazel, Longers, obviously you got Fairman as well. We both have been big proponents of Fairman saying, hey, we get the substitution sort of by Frazel because that's kind of, maybe Gramotzis brought him in or whatever, and nothing. Fairman did nothing to lose his spot, right? And then so when we played the friendly before this game against Cologne, Fairman got the start, and I was curious to see how he would do. And I think the team did very well against a Bundesliga club, a top 10 Bundesliga club. 2 goals in that game were given away by bad mistakes by Fairman in that game. And I'm like, okay, well, the main difference between the two is the distribution. And so I think long-term, I don't know if Fairman's great to have on a team. He's great, captain type material, great for the locker room. But is Frazel the answer going forward, especially if we get promoted, or as Longers? I don't think so. We got to find someone else, whether it's a youngster. I don't know. Schubert, I guess we sold instead of a loan.
Yeah, I mean, particularly if we get promoted. And obviously, we're getting way ahead of ourselves here because promotion is really the only focus that we have for the rest of the season. So we don't want to start, talking too far in the future. But I think particularly if we get promoted, then I think to Renee's point here in the chat, you will need to get a new goalkeeper. I'm not convinced that Frazel or Fairman are going to be what we want in the Bundesliga going forward.
Where's Frederick Renov?
Wonder what Nubel's up to these days. Probably not much.
Poorly.
It's not like he's busy right now. Anyway, no, but yeah, I agree with your take. I thought Fairman getting yanked when he did was a little bit harsh, but Frazel's played very, fine. I think both of them are good for the season. Fairman already on a pay cut as it is. To stay with the club. So if that salary even diminished, is still an issue on the books. It is, I think, at this point, probably if it becomes a financial necessity, it's probably difficult to justify Fairman's presence too much longer. Because he just hasn't been performing that well. If he was the reliable veteran who could come in whenever needed and just kind of unquestionably put in a solid performance, it'd be one thing. And I do think there's been some hard situations on him a little bit, but he does make mistakes at this point in his career a little bit. And certainly not somebody that I think you would want to have as your starting keeper going forward in an ideal world. I'll say,
or a high wage backup either.
Exactly. Yeah.
And Renee says even Frazel's contracts have been held off so far. So yeah, I think we need a goalkeeper especially if we get promoted. Michel Longer, I mean, you can keep him if he's cheap, really. If you can't, as just a backup, he's decent as a backup, I guess. But we certainly need a new starting goalkeeper for sure. If we, going forward, no matter what, probably. And William Crump says Dan Rose, he's the young Irish player youngest Irish keeper that we picked up. I'm not sure how he's doing with the youth team. I'm going to ask Cedric or Kessie how they're doing. Maybe Renee knows. I haven't seen much of him with the youth team. But I'm curious how he's doing. One for the future potentially.
If we do get a good young keeper, and can we just put the keeper in a Fairman jersey and just hope that nobody notices it's a different player? Because I'm really tired of these youth players emerging, and after a half a season of play, there's
Neuer 2.0
to buy them. Yeah, exactly. It's so frustrating. Yeah, it'd be nice to have some stability back there. There's been so many people in and out of that position over the last 3-4 years. And that's not a position that you want to see that kind of movement, in my opinion, personally. That's, the more consistent and solid a presence as you can have back there, the team's going to be used to the way they try to organize things from the back and that kind of stuff. And having, a revolving door of keepers is probably not a good stabilizing mechanism for a team that's been in kind of the precarious situations that Schalke have been over the last few seasons.
Yeah. And speaking of revolving door, another position we have a revolving door in is right back, and we thought was solidified with Vinheim possibly, but his injury now seems a bit long-term. It sounds he's out for at least for a few weeks, hopefully nothing more. We don't know yet. I know it's a calf injury, I believe is what I read. But it sucks. He makes a great debut. We have all these high hopes. Now he's out. Ronfo's there. I mean, Aiden was out, I think. I don't know if it's because of COVID reasons or what was the reason, but, going forward, it's going to be Ronfo and Aiden and maybe
Churlinov.
Or Churlinov, right.
That's the question for me is I think as long as Bolter and Terodde are healthy, Bolter, Terodde, and Pieringer are going to be the three players most likely to be started up top. Yeah. I don't think Churlinov's going to get a lot of looks in the short term in that position. And so I wonder if you're looking for an opportunity to get him in the mix, if you put him back, in sort of that wing back position until Vinheim is healthy, until, Aiden is kind of reintegrated.
I mean, it probably makes sense to start Churlinov with the offensive flair and try to get goals early. And once you get a goal, swap him out for someone like a Ronfil or an Aiden. Though as much as I love Aiden and I want to see him progress and get some, progress with his talents and really evolve his game, Churlinov brings that offensive flair that the other two guys don't have on a consistent basis. And so once you get that goal, like in this last game, you take him off and put someone else on the right side, Matriciani even, I don't even know, but I don't trust Ronfil. I don't, but our options are limited at the moment. Defensively, I trust him more than Churlinov. I'll tell you that. Early in the season, we were bitching and moaning.
I agree with that. Yeah, I think Ronfil is probably reasonably better than Churlinov defensively, but I think Churlinov is probably reasonably better than Ronfil offensively going forward.
And Aiden's
certainly provides more on the dribble, that kind of thing. Ronfil plays crosses in, but they aren't consistently as dangerous and well played as Oweyan, for example. Oweyan isn't whipping a lot of aimless balls in the box just to get balls into the box.
Yeah.
And sometimes Ronfil seems to just kind of be playing things slightly more haphazardly. That's my take. But
yeah. On a plus side, team of the week, Malik Thiaw made the team of the week this year in this Fight the Liga. Last week we had two players in the team of the week, and this week we have Malik Thiaw. So good on him. Good performance from him, game-winning goal.
30-minute cameo team of the week performance at that.
I'm surprised Bolter didn't make it with his 2 assists, but that's me. That's just me, So
Thiaw was good defensively as well. Not just the goal that he scored, that kind of thing, but he came on and he helped settle things down in the last half an hour once we had that lead for sure.
He did.
Good player.
It is a good player. We'd keep him up. I'm glad he didn't go to Milan or anywhere else during the transfer market because lots of rumors about that.
The back three, the stability of the back three is so important to because the idea that you have Oweyan, Kaminsky, Itakura and Thiaw and now Sane, like every week, like game in, game out, like having that stability at the back, I think is very important and is helped us kind of provide the launching pad. And once again, now it's just kind of getting that little extra bit out of the offense and we'll be in a better position.
And it's more important ever that we play with a chemistry because the top of the league is getting tighter and tighter. Hamburg just blew away the top of the table. Darmstadt 5-0 this weekend. And now they leapfrogged us. Werder's ahead of us. St. Pauli is still in second place and Darmstadt still in first. But Heidenheim
it's tied with Heidenheim as well. Yeah, it's like
Heidenheim.
Yeah. Hamburg, us, and Heidenheim on 37.
It is getting tight, and we need to almost win out. I mean, someone's going to go on a run here and have to just to get out of this league. And, to William's point is, the goal differential, which we are second best in the league right now, which is in our favor, which is rare to say. We haven't said that in a long time, goal differential in our favor. But we need to get goals. And Toronto's tied in the league lead now with goals again. Bolter, who was in the top 10 in scoring for us, we just need the extra 10%, like you said, the extra 10% every game. Continue to be solid defensively, whoever the back three is or back five. And move forward and go up. So, yeah. Renee says, what's your preferred back lineup for the next week? Next week?
I mean, for me, I guess the answer to that would be like, how do you expect Dusseldorf to come out in this one? Because, I mean, this is if you feel like Dusseldorf is going to sit in the box and kind of bunker in a little bit more, then I'm almost probably more likely to be like, bench Kaminski, because that long ball over the top is probably not going to be as much of an option as opposed to a team like Regensburg that's going to press you a little bit more and going to come out and put that ball pressure, which maybe he can open some things, a little bit more directly over the top. So I'd kind of probably go with who I think is maybe the little bit rangier, a little bit pacier, more reliable kind of defensive option as opposed to Kaminski, because, if we have a lot of possession, for example, against Düsseldorf and a lot of their chances are going to be coming in transition on the break, I'd probably say that Kaminski's the guy that should be left out in this situation.
And we know Itakura is very talented with his feet. He could probably push up at times. Malik Thiaw, we've seen already this year, he can do that as well. And so you have that solidifying figure back there, Sane, with other two be able to press up a little bit more in certain opportunities, especially if it's a park the bus type of defense by Düsseldorf. Yeah, I would go with those three and bench Kaminski in this one. My optimal back three would be, no matter what, everyone healthy, it would be Kaminski, Thiaw, Sane, and Itakura.
Yeah,
So.
But as we keep saying, I don't think there's a game where Kaminski's in the lineup and you're like, ooh, like yikes. Like I think anytime Kaminski's in the lineup, you're like, I'm completely confident with that. It might not be like totally ideal in terms of who I really think are the best three, but I'm not going to be upset or like worried if Kaminski's in the starting 11. He's definitely earned his place there for sure.
Exactly. And it sounds like Dusseldorf sacked their manager. We played another team earlier this year where the same thing happened. We were afraid maybe a bump with Sandhausen. We thought maybe they were, come at us really hard with that. And so we'll see. You never know. You never know with that new manager bump that may happen. So some talking points before we get out of here. Bujleb.
Yes.
Not in the starting options, says Schroeder, and we kind of said that here on our podcast that we don't think it's going to happen just because.
Yeah. I still haven't read a ton more, but he had obviously gotten released for violating team rules or protocols or whatever that was, which is not a good look for a young player, on loan trying to get more minutes and kind of get something going in his career. So we were wondering if this is going to be a situation where we could reintegrate him, if he's going to start being an option. And it sounds like, as you said, the early returns of that Schroeder's like, we'll kind of reevaluate in the summer. We're not anticipating him being in the first team picture at any point here in the Rückrunde. The
chemistry is so good with this team at the moment. Why ruin that by bringing in someone? We're not sure what the circumstances were behind the scenes, so just don't ruin what's good right now with the team and let them continue moving forward.
Somebody who's never particularly impressed me either. We said this a couple podcasts ago, I think, of like that young group of players. Sorry, we're once again, to those who are not watching the live stream, and we're interacting with the chat. That's why. But I mean, Renee just called Bujleb the PES version of Bentleb, which is that's an all-time comment. That's pretty funny. But of that younger group, so like Flick, Idrizi, Katuchu, Bujleb, whoever you want to, Bosdowan, right?
Yeah.
Of that group of players, Bujleb was always to me the least convincing and the player that I just never really thought offered much of anything when he was on the pitch. So I wouldn't be a hurry to kind of reintegrate him anyway. So I'm totally fine with that decision from Schroeder and Gramatzis.
Absolutely, I agree with that. And speaking of Schroeder, rumors were circulating that maybe he would go to Gladbach. next season, and he's done so well for us, and why not? Of course he's going to get called up, possibly mentioned with all these other teams because of what he's done with Schalke. We talk, or at least I said it, that to me he's the signing of the season because what he's done from basically nothing. But he came out and said, "Nope, I'm with Schalke next year, so no worries." Now we can all breathe at least a sigh of relief that hopefully we get promoted and he can see what he can do with maybe a little bit more money. But if not, at least I 100% trust what he can do with no money. So let's see. I'm happy. I love his passion on the bench with Buskins and Gerald Asamoah and Gramozis. So I love seeing him.
The second I saw those Gladbach rumors, because Abril obviously resigning, which is a huge moment. I mean, to go back to the Bundesliga for a second, everything that he's done for Gladbach over recent seasons, I mean, he's going to be a hot commodity wherever he ends up next for sure. Regardless of what's going on with Gladbach this season. But yeah, when I saw those Schroeder rumors, I was just like, why can't we have nice things? Like, why can't we have, once again, it's like 6 months into somebody being at the club and it's like some other big club is trying to poach him immediately. It's so frustrating, but thankfully Schroeder's sticking around. I totally agree with you in terms of him being the signing of the season. I really respect and kind of believe in what he did in terms of the personnel overhaul that was required in the squad. If we gain promotion, which is obviously the goal, I would love to see what he's able to do in that sort of transition year back into the Bundesliga and what he can do with the squad there. I think that'd be fascinating. So hopefully we get a chance to see it.
And I think the most fascinating thing for me with Schroeder and the signings he's made is how he was able to convince Terodde with the mix mash of players that he was going to bring in that this is going to work. Terodde is going to look to be on a team that he can score goals on, and 2, try to get another stint in the Bundesliga somehow with a club. And so whatever he did to convince Terodde was got to be magic. I mean, if you come into a situation like Schalke, if you're Terodde, you don't know who you're going to play with, who any of these players are. You don't know who he's going to be signing. So it's a lot of unknowns with that. So, Schroeder must have convinced them, mightily and obviously for good reason. So yeah, it's just a full credit to Schroeder and what he can do with the pen in his hand, I guess. I don't know. But happy he's staying. So
for sure. And Terodde's so good, man. Once again, just all he needs is that one moment, and he comes up with something. So he can be quiet for 99% of the match. He can still win you a match. Pretty incredible.
And I don't know if you heard this, but apparently Robbie Matondo is lighting it up in Belgium. I haven't heard this, but
I have heard that in the chat. So that's
all I thought. Ryan dropped knowledge on this.
I have not been following Robbie Matondo, but obviously we wish him well. Hey, if he does well, good for him.
He's still a player, right? He's still a player with us.
I'd love to see it.
He's on loan, right?
I'll have to go. Yeah, I think so. I'll have to go see if we can find some sizzle reels for what Matondo's doing.
It's funny because today I saw a picture of Matondo and I was like, I wonder how he's doing these days. And apparently he's doing well. So I got to go. Yeah, like you said, look up some highlights and see what he's doing over there. And then last thing I want to talk about again is the new man, the South Korean Messi, as they're calling him. I'm not gonna, we're not gonna get too much of the Messi thing, but I'm excited from what I've seen of him, and I'm gonna do a tactics video on him here shortly. But from what I've seen, he is the offensive attacking midfielder that we don't have. He's very good with both feet. He's got a good shot on him. His vision is ridiculous, and he's very improvisational. And he can get out of tight jams. He's good with his feet. I'm curious what he's going to do in this Fight the Liga. He didn't get used in the stands in this one, but I imagine he'll be with the team soon. And maybe a game like Dusseldorf is a great opportunity. Maybe not the start, but at least come off the bench and give him a chance against a team that's lower in the table as opposed to a Hamburg or Darmstadt or something like that. So,
as always, I'm not going to pretend that I know a lot about this guy. I had a FIFA manager career mode with Ulsan Hyundai back in like 2008, and I've had pretty much zero interaction with the club in the past decade since.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the brief highlight clips that you see, certainly looks like the kind of player that we could use centrally to help unlock some things and provide a little bit of a touch of class, maybe pick out a better pass. Not to kind of dunk on Zalazar here, who's been an important player for us this season. But like when you look at like some of the things that our new man's doing in these highlight clips comparatively, it's like it's just a little bit more controlled, refined, got a better vision, can play a pass. Zalazar is very frenetic on the dribble, making things happen by dragging people out of position, which has its place and which can be useful. But I'm looking forward to seeing what he can provide. So never bad to. We wonder if there's going to be a striker, right? Like if Schroeder was going to bring in that striker and it didn't end up going that way, but this could be equally as valuable. We'll see.
Yeah, and not only for Salazar, but maybe Idrisi, because I mean this is a number 10, potentially, and if he can do some of the things he can even looks like he can do on some of these videos from the highlights, and then let Salazar do his box to box thing, you might have something there. And then what happens if Latza comes back? Latza's still going to be a bench player, backup player. Paulson, we've talked about before. He's by far the starter between the two of them. And then Flick, he's been doing some good things as well. But Latza has good impact. He's obviously the club captain, but coming off the bench, I think he does good things. And we saw 2 goals last game, which is something good.
Dude, this might be wild, but like, let's just say you wanted to give a start to our new signing. I think I'd drop Salazar and keep Idrisi right now.
I'd like to see how that works, though.
Two guys. Just this is recency bias, but the last couple games in particular, Idrisi's been seemingly a little bit more under control as well. Because this is going to take. I'm sorry, I've gone on a bunch of rambles today. I apologize. I have a lot of thoughts this evening, so thank you for bearing.
You're still thawing out from Minnesota. I get it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you remember Weston McKennie at his time at Schalke, had the ability to make things happen on the ball, but was a little bit inconsistent, a little bit unrefined, took a heavy touch, would beat one man, but would do it in a way where he can't control the next touch and then lose, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But if you watch him now with the U.S. men's national team or at Juventus, especially he looks like arguably the most technically refined player in the U.S. men's national team pool. He's improved in that regard significantly. And I feel like there's been a slight similar arc to Idrisi a little bit, earlier in the season, limited cameos, but frenetic player can make some things happen, but sometimes a little bit out of position, trying to do a little bit too much. Since the winter pause of these first couple of games, very in control, pulls off some great technical things consistently. He didn't have a lot of passes cut out in this game, and there were some difficult balls that he played, little chip passes over the top, making a lot of things happen. Whenever he needed to make a connecting pass, he seemed to be able to do it. And that was very impressive to me. And I've just been liking what I'm seeing from him a lot recently.
And if I'm not mistaken, I thought Gramozzi says he's been doing really well in practice and really pushing the tempo and things, which is good to see. And maybe, just maybe, Salazar needs to take a breather and maybe recoup and regain some of that fire that he was missing over the last couple games since Winterpause ended. So, yeah, I'm not against that. I just still want to see the new guy no matter what, whether it's a whole 90 or 60 or 30 or whatever. So, yeah, let's see. David Fangaritis. All right. Next game is on Sunday morning, early game. Another watch along to be seen. No, I think we'll have another watch along here. Yeah. Let's see. I don't know if we're gonna do another podcast next Monday. That's Valentine's Day, and I'd like to stay married, so we'll talk.
Yeah,
we'll talk.
That's fair enough.
We'll talk.
Maybe I'll do a special Lonely Hearts edition of the SchalkeMerica podcast. Just me and my fellow single individuals, and you can have some time with the missus. No.
Anything else you want to talk before we get out of here?
No, not at all.
Not on that note.
Got to have a result against Düsseldorf.
Yes,
need it. As
3
I said,
points.
top of the table. 2 teams tied on 38. 3 teams, including us, tied on 37. Playing a bottom table here against Düsseldorf. Need to make it happen. 3 points.
We need it. Shout out to the chat. You guys lively tonight. Thank you, making this all awesome as always. And shout out to Maj 1904 on YouTube with the videos of Li Dongjiang. Definitely give him a follow. Great videos for Schalke, so definitely give him a follow. All right, Jack. Any shout outs tonight? Where can our followers find you on social media?
Folks, find me at JMMangan, JMMangan on Twitter. I will post a picture of me in cold weather gear from the Minnesota U.S. men's national team versus Honduras World Cup qualifier, and you can enjoy that obnoxious outfit. I'll do that just for our dear SchalkeMerica listeners here shortly.
Beautiful. And it sounds so much better when you say your username as opposed to me. I don't know why I did it last week. Whatever. You can follow me at r_KHARMAN. Until the next podcast comes or watch along, we'll catch you soon. Look out.